This is a giant experiment today. I'm sorry about the little bit of shadow that you see down there. I'm standing today and I couldn't figure out how to get my light soft enough. So bear with me on that. I don't think it's going to cause you any problems. Anyway, I want to experiment with some Powertex, some other items from Powertex besides the wax. But what I'm using today, what I've got, and I'll try to explain everything as I go, but this is the PowerWax, all right, from Powertex. Powertex. It is a water-based cold wax. I've talked about that before. I also bought a selection of their powdered pigments. This happens to be interference blue, and you can mix this directly into the PowerWax. You can also mix it into, hang on a second. They have what they call a universal medium, which is basically a binder which holds all this stuff together and makes it stick to your painting surface, all right? And I'm actually going to start mixing this with my PowerWax, because in doing my research, what I found out is that the PowerWax does not have a binder in it, and that may be some of the problem when it comes to not drying as I think it should dry. So for an example here, I did the elephant. You've all seen that. This actually does feel bone dry. It doesn't, there's a little bit of a waxy feel maybe on this side, but it doesn't have that waxy feel to me, and you can still scratch the surface though, but I think that's just the nature of the wax product itself, and I don't see that as being a problem. Most people aren't going to hang their art on the wall and then, you know, God forbid, sit there and scratch at it. I don't know why they would. So anyway, and by putting an isolation coat and then putting my varnish on top, that may well prevent it being able to be scratched. That may seal it to the point that it's completely and totally protected. So that's why I'm doing this little experiment today. So that will be another video, but what my point is that I'm getting at is this particular guy I did using the PowerWax, and it's been sitting on my shelf for months, and it has a lot waxier feel to it. But I'm going to do the same thing to this. I'm going to use an isolation coat, Golden's isolation coat, and then I'm going to use a golden varnish to go over the top. I will definitely do videos of this so that you can see what happens. Hopefully it will all go well. But the reason that I am understanding why it doesn't get completely dry many of the times is because there's not enough binder in the wax, so it stays waxy. However, if you mix acrylic paint, obviously acrylic paint has binder. So I'm guessing that when I did the elephant, my ratio to wax, paint to wax, was enough that there was enough binder there to allow that wax to dry. But with the bunny, which was the very first thing I ever attempted, I think I used more wax than anything else, and so there wasn't enough binder. It's dried to a point, but it's not as dry as the elephant, and I hope that makes sense. So my experiment today is going to be, if I use the universal medium with the PowerWax, that should provide the binder, and then, excuse me, that should provide the binder that I need, and I can still add whatever I want to add, you know, the powder or the paint on top of that. The only thing that I see that's going to be a problem is with cold wax, the traditional cold wax, which is oil-based. So the cold wax is a lot firmer texture than what the cold wax water-based version is. And so what I'm afraid of is by the time I add the wax, I add the medium, and then I add any paint, it's going to be a pretty fluid mixture, and that is not what I'm looking for. So we're going to do a little experimentation with that. And the other thing that I purchased that I'm going to try is the rusty powder. There you go. I've done some research, and the thing that is going to be tricky with this stuff is that you don't really see your results till the next day. It's going to look completely different on the canvas until it has a chance to react with, you actually spray it with vinegar when you're done, and you have to let that sit 24 hours and then come back to it. So, you know, that's kind of freaky, right? So we'll see how that works. And then I also have some modeling paste, semi-opaque acrylic texture, medium satin finish by Golden. So we're going to play with that today too, and see what happens. So the surface that I'm working on today, this is a gesso board. No cradle. This is just a piece of masonite that has had gesso applied to it. It has, a fairly smooth texture. There is some tooth there, which I think is probably going to be necessary for what we're going to be doing today. You want to have a little bit. I like working on hard substrates because then if I get carried away and I do start to build up a lot of materials, whether it's the modeling paste or the rust or whatever, I don't have to worry about cracking. Any type of flexible surface that you might work on, you just have to keep in mind, if you don't mount that to something stiff when you're done, there's always a possibility that things are going to crack. Now, obviously, if you had it professionally mounted and framed, that shouldn't be an issue. But for me today, I just decided, and I think this is a 16 by 16. I have a vision of what I want to do here, but my main goal, quite frankly, is just to experiment and play. And I would show you my face while we were talking today, but it's early in the morning here in Apollo Beach. I'm still in my jams, and I find sometimes I do my best experimenting when I'm in my jams. So we're going to move ahead with that. Okay, so just going to use this large flat brush. The first thing I want to do is just get color down. Oh, let me grab. I like to add a little bit of water just to make things flow freely. So I got this nifty little spray bottle. I'm just going to give this a squirt. And I am working flat today. There may be a point when I move this to the easel, when I get to some of the detail work. But right now, I'm pretty much just working flat. And I'm going to start with kind of a golden tone underneath. And I've seen a lot of people do this. I haven't really done this, so let's just do this, right? Let's see if we can get some paint to come out first. Oh, there it comes. It's coming. It's coming. Let's just put some globs of paint here on this wet surface. Let's see what happens when we move that around with our nice wet brush. Because I don't want a uniform color here, right? I'm just getting color on so that I'm no longer looking at a big blank white surface. And I don't care if there's bubbles or texture. It's going to add too in the end, right? And y'all still, has anybody guessed what my subject matter, my focal point was going to be? I'm still not telling. But I'll say again, the hints that I gave, it's a subject that I have painted before, and it usually comes to light during my favorite time of the year, my favorite holiday. So those are the clues. It shouldn't be hard to figure out if you know even a little bit about me. Okay, so let's leave that. Throw that in the water. And one of my favorite things to do with a wet surface, I reorganized my studio, so I can't find anything now. Isn't that always the way, guys? Let's see. Oh, here it is. I found it. I'll have to do a little video of what I've added and how I've tried to categorize and make finding my supplies easier. This is just regular old plastic wrap. And while it's still wet, you can stick it in, wrinkle it up, and, you know, it just does some cool things, right? Again, giving me just some extra texture there, and it may all get covered up. You may not see any of that, but it's a good start. It's a good start, and it will, I'm hoping, keep me from taking things so seriously, because that is my biggest problem. I have a very hard time being loose and spontaneous when I paint. I always seem to have a plan. I haven't even done a sketch yet for this particular piece. So anything can happen, right? All right, we need to let that dry, and then I'll be back. So this is dry now. I used a hairdryer because I'm impatient, of course, always. So I've had this container of PowerWax for quite a while, and they do advise you, if you're not going to be using it on a frequent basis, to take a piece of tape and seal the edge. I did that for a while, and then I got lazy. But I do believe it will dry out if left too long. I don't even know, you might even, if you're really concerned about it, I'd seal the edge with tape and put it in a plastic bag just for the sake of that extra measure, because this stuff is, as you all know, I'm sure, is expensive. Now, it comes out, you can kind of hopefully get an idea. This, I think, because it's set for a while and it's already started to dry a bit, has a lot more, well, you can see, it's a lot stiffer than what it normally is. Normally, fresh out of the jar, it's a creamier texture, almost like soft butter, I guess is what I would say. So, I'm not sure where I want to go from here. Let's see. Oh, I know what I have to do. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, and I think, again, in my research, I read you need about 25% of this product. And it says, Powertex is a hardener for all absorbent natural materials, textiles, paper, cardboard, blah, blah, blah. Mixes easily. Completely hardened in 2 or 3 weeks. Okay, so it doesn't say anything about shaking it, but I'm just going to go ahead and give it a little mix here. Let's make sure. And I believe in one of my research endeavors, oh, and now we have to figure out how to open it, right? Oh, okay. Is that working? Ah, okay. There we go. I hate child safety everything because I no longer have childs here, but I get it. I wonder if you can't get that off. Okay. All right. So I think I read something about like 25%. So 75, 25, with this being the 25 and this being the 75. So I'm just going to, not measuring it out. We're just going to pour some in there. So this comes out, the consistency of this seems to be, it's not like real watery. Maybe heavy cream would be. Yeah, I'd say that's kind of like the consistency of heavy cream. So you can see now as I mix this, it's obviously going to have an effect on the wax, but because my wax had a chance to sit and dry on the shelf for a few weeks, I don't think it's going to be quite as fluid as I had originally anticipated. I don't know if that's good or bad. And the other thing is, it is pretty grainy. It's not mixing like I would expect it to mix. And again, that may be. We'll try this again. I do have some new wax, so I'm going to do both. We'll try it this way, and then I'll break out the new stuff so that you can see the difference, and we'll see how it mixes. If this is just normal, this grainier type look. But I think I've really mixed it pretty well. Okay, so now, what do I want to throw in there? That's the next question, right? Let me think about this a minute. You can apply this with a palette knife. You can apply it with a squeegee. Any tool you want to use. I'm going to go grab a few in my arsenal here. Obviously, this is from my faux finish days. I used to do a lot of faux finishing. It's just a rubber combs, different widths. And this is just your standard art, you know, squeegee. You could use all different corners. And these guys are really fun because they're just basically rubber brushes. I mean, of varying widths that you can apply your product with. So those are all available to me, as well as anything I want to use. Really, the sky is the limit. Okay, so here's what I think. I'm going to take a little bit of this aside to play with, and this particular case, I think I'm going to try this Super Copper. Let's see what, ooh, it's so pretty. I have no idea how much to put in or anything else about this, but we're gonna give it a whirl. So I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit there. And mix it up. Isn't this fun? Now keep in mind that the wax in and of itself is transparent, and the universal medium and the universal medium that I have mixed with the wax is also transparent. So this really yucky color should change, and it should go back to looking like this iridescent copper if I put enough in there, which there again, it's a guess. It's all a guess. But that's what's so fun, right? I'm just going to start, and like I said, I have no idea what I want to do. I just know this looks really ugly right now. It's not a color that I would really like, but and I'm putting this on fairly thin because I'm not sure where I'm going with this even. So I'm sliding around. And just so this usually, the palette knife usually is one of my favorite mark tools to play with, but just so you can see what some of these others can do. Of course, the different pressures you apply are going to make, you know, a difference. I need to go in different directions. I'm really bad about wanting to stay the course and go in one direction only. And do try to remember, since we're working with acrylic, it's good to always wipe off or dry your tools, so the paint, medium, whatever, it doesn't dry in there. I really think I want some other colors here, but let's do what happens when I put some, oh, cool fun, oh, I like that, don't do it everywhere. Yes, I talk to myself a lot during the process. That's just me being me. All right, I'm gonna grab, I knew right from the start that I was gonna be using some turquoise and with these colors, because of course they're opposites sort of on the color wheel, so you can get some really interesting things. So I'm gonna put a little, now this is not the tube, of course, I didn't have the turquoise in the tube, so, but this is a little bit, oh, and you know what, I should clean. I'm gonna go ahead and clean my, not sure that that's all that important, but you know, for the experiment case. So that's probably quite a bit of paint. This is a transparent paint, acrylic, but I've used quite a bit. And again, ooh, now see, that's a color I can get behind. That's kind of an interesting thing to do too. Kind of do some swirls. And I haven't added any rust yet. You know, this is just my play with the wax time right now. And that's exactly what I encourage you to do, is play. Push those limits and see what these products will do for you and your process. And it looks like this is drying quicker, because I would have expected that when I went back over this to have lost some of those texture lines, and they're still there. So maybe that binder is a really good thing. It's already tacking up. I like that. I like that a lot, because it gives you it gives you a lot more options. Oops. Because normally I would put a layer on and I would walk away, because I was just, smearing things. But this is really drying fast, guys. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Let's do... Let's get some little more of this, that, and the other thing going on. What else could I... Well, I don't want to waste this. I love this color anyway, so let's do a little bit more of this. So one thing I can say is, with the powder, it is starting to dry. The color is getting better, but not like I thought it would be. It's not giving me what I had expected to see, which was, I think, something more shinier, more iridescent. So not sure why that is. I'll have to probably do some more experimenting on that. And of course, try to be patient while things dry. But yeah, now I'm finding that I need to work fairly fast. I'm going to make some marks here. Scratch some things out. I'm just twisting and turning my... I think that's the other thing I like, is you can really be aggressive if you're having a bad day. I'm a big fan of drips and runs, but I think those are going to have to come later for where my brain is right now. Not the best composition going here, but we got a long ways to go. Okay, so I want to do some, what do I want to do? So just so I can see what some of these powders look like, I'm going to take a little bit more of this aside. And I'm going to add the PowerWax Violet. Be a little more generous this time. See if that makes a difference. That's interesting. Now you can scratch. I usually have to wait till the next day to even be able to scratch much of anything. So I will say this, you need to work quicker than what I'm used to working, even though I'm an acrylic artist. I usually, because of the amount of water that I normally work with, I usually can get away with playing for quite a while. Not so here. Like I said, I kind of like thinner layers to begin with, so that's why I'm kind of using this to spread things around. Just see what happens. Overlap and play, and see if I can get a little more copper in here. Maybe I need to add a little more copper and see if it'll give me a little more of the feel that I'm going for. I want a little more iridescent look, if I can get it. I need to add a little more wax to that. That's really dry. Okay. I like the color better. So I probably needed to be a little more generous in my mixture. Yeah, that's what it was, because now I can see more of a shininess, which I may cover completely up the next layer, but we'll go with it. I love seeing those colors from underneath shine through. So cool. Okay. So learned a lesson there. More is better in this case when it comes to the iridescent colors. If you really want to get that shine, I think I pulled out some other palette knives to play with too. And let's see if I can scratch some stuff in here. Oh, it's so, yeah. I just can't say that often enough. It is really drying out. Now I have yet to get the modeling stuff on there. That's gonna come, so I've got the wax. And see, and I don't know how I'm gonna assume because everything's drying so well that I can get away with putting the modeling wax on top, but this also is an experiment. This is, I have to tell you guys, this is really, it may not seem like it, but this is really uncomfortable for me. I am not, I'm just trying to get rid of some of the wax that I basically scratched off. I don't know that that's necessary. It's just a requirement for me because that's the way I run. It just feels like it needs to happen. Okay, so now I've got a fairly dry surface. I mean, I can still feel the waxiness of it, but I think that would be normal. You're obviously using wax, but it's definitely sticking well and, you know, not smearing. I can layer over top of it. Nothing as much as moving. All right, take a short break.